One of the biggest problems with people postponing working on their PTSD symptoms or symptoms related to their trauma is the longer you wait, the better you actually get at not working on it. Hey, I'm Dr. McCleary, licensed clinical psychologist and Navy veteran. And my channel is dedicated to educating veterans, service members, and their families about mental health and PTSD. So if that's you, consider subscribing. Or if you don't fall into those categories, but my content still helps you, that's cool too. So if you've ever watched any of my content about PTSD, you know that I talk about the symptom of avoidance a lot. And when I talk about avoidance related to PTSD, really what I'm talking about is two types of avoidance. One, avoiding external things, going certain places, being around certain people, being around certain numbers of people, those type of things. And then there is also the internal avoidance, avoiding certain feelings, avoiding certain thoughts, avoiding certain memories. Both are symptoms of PTSD, and both are really normal behaviors after a trauma. The tricky thing about avoidance is the longer we don't work on our PTSD symptoms, the longer we end up avoiding. And here's the thing, life continues to go on. So what often happens for people that have experienced a trauma and have PTSD as a result is their avoidance symptoms change over the years. And really, to just be short about it, people get better at avoiding. Sometimes people get so good at avoiding, they don't even think it's avoiding. That's how good. Let's start with some of the external avoidance symptoms. You can avoid certain people, places, situations, conversations for so long that you can actually begin to believe that you don't even like to do these things anymore. Oh, I don't even like concerts. Oh, I don't even like, going to amusement parks. I don't like going to church. I don't like, any type of crowd. You can actually convince yourself that you don't even like it anymore. Not that you're avoiding it because of your trauma. You can avoid certain things, internal thoughts, certain feelings, so much and for so long that it's almost as if it gets baked into your personality. I have a whole video on how PTSD can affect your personality, and I'll link that down in the description. People have all different types of ways of avoiding. And for some people, they avoid certain conversations or people asking them certain questions by acting a certain way. Maybe acting aggressively. Maybe being the stereotypical mean Army veteran uncle. Is that guy really mean? Or is he just putting off that persona so he doesn't have to talk about it and relive maybe some of the worst times in his life? The trouble with avoiding certain internal or external things is not the actual avoidance of them necessarily, but it's the reasoning for the avoidance. Because many times when we're dealing with PTSD, we're not actually making a choice to avoid things. We're not doing things that we just don't want to do. We're not doing things because we feel like we can't actually do them. And those are two different things. So if you don't like to do something, okay, fine. Don't do it. Who am I to judge what you actually like to do? However, you can end up avoiding for so long that you actually don't even know what you like to do anymore. People often will shape their whole lives around avoidance. So they won't have certain relationships, or certain kinds of relationships, or relationships with certain people. They won't take certain jobs. They won't go certain places. And this makes people's world smaller and smaller. So when you don't deal with your PTSD, what ends up happening is your PTSD ends up ruling your life, making your decisions for you. And PTSD, let's just be honest, can make some bad decisions. It can keep you from doing things that maybe you should or maybe you want to do. It can make you do things that arguably you shouldn't do and maybe don't want to do. It takes your choices away from you, even though you're trying to keep yourself safe. You're trying to not relive what happened. You're trying to make sure it doesn't happen again, which of course makes perfect sense. No one wants to relive or re-experience potentially the worst time of their life. But what ends up happening is the choices get taken away from you. We can even convince ourselves that we're doing it because we want to. We're doing it because it's keeping us safe. Maybe not. Maybe it's actually hurting us in the long run. Avoidance for a long time doesn't change. It just gets more complex. And people get very good at it. So when they come see me and their life looks a certain way, it's been that way for a long time. Often people don't even know how they got there. And one of the reasons is they didn't make any of the choices. PTSD that made those choices for them. Something to think about. And some encouragement that if you haven't started PTSD treatment, whatever that looks like for you, the sooner the better. But now is also better than ever. Something to think about. If this video was helpful for you, and I hope that it was, please like it or consider subscribing to my channel if you want to learn more about PTSD and mental health. But more important than that, if this video was helpful for you, well, that means it can probably be helpful for another veteran or another service member or another friend or family member of a veteran. So I ask that you share it with them, because at the end of the day, that's really what all this is about. One veteran trying to help another.